So if you have ever played Dungeons & Dragons, you've probably heard this very particular saying, never split the party. Now, one of the things that I believe to have anecdotally observed is that the only people who actually say this are people who play primarily or exclusively Dungeons & Dragons. I have never heard anyone outside of the lowest common denominator of pen and paper tabletop gaming say this unless they were a D&D fanatic playing a different system, saying it in that system. I don't want to be too harsh on D&D today. I've actually grown to like it quite a bit, and I do think that the community around it has created some fantastic content that make it a great game. Nevertheless, this adage sits very poorly with me. Maybe this is because I don't really play the game for the combat mechanics, which I know can be fun, but personally, I think that combat is generally an overused method of creating tension. But I know that this is a very, not necessarily unique opinion, but a rare one nonetheless, and I'm not even sure if it's a correct one. I want you to split the party. I want you to split the party as often as you can get away with it. And by you, I mean both you as the players and as the GM. Now, one of the main reasons why we want the party to never be split is if there's a combat encounter, we want the full roster of carefully balanced superheroes to be there. Also, combat, even short combat, can take a while, and you don't really want a player that's excluded from that combat because they're somewhere else. So never splitting the party is both a mechanical safety measure against a GM that will just destroy you at the earliest opportunity, and a dramatic safety measure against having bored players at the table. But I think that the cost far outweighs the benefits. There is a rule in writing, and this is for fiction, screenplays, which I also include plays under that category, that you should always write a scene with as few characters as possible. And this is a great rule because if you follow it, it really allows you to work with the characters that you are focusing on at that point in time without having to dilute it with other characters also having to be included in the scene to do something or say something. You can explore specific character dynamics and highlight characters in a way that you otherwise cannot, because people behave differently depending on what group they are in. And even within constituent elements of a group, so two characters in an adventuring party might treat each other very differently when they are just the two of them or when the whole party's around. Recently I had a session of not D&D but The Dark Eye, where we were investigating who was trying to murder the mayor of the city that we'd just arrived at. After a somewhat awkward scene where the whole party was gathered to interview a group of sailors, we decided to split up and each seek information in the areas that we were best at. My character, an assassin turned smuggler who may or may not have murdered several of the mayor's political allies in service of a foreign empire some years ago because he has daddy issues, went to the local thieves guild, which he had to specifically find through his skills as a smuggler, and then had a conversation with the guy there in thieves' cant trying to find out who smuggled a specific rare poison into town. The thieves guild is hidden for a reason. They don't want outsiders to be in there, even if they are the friends of one of the members of the Thieves Guild. You also have to have conversations back to back so you don't see each other's faces when exchanging information. Meanwhile, our surgeon was at the barracks of the Mercenary Legion that he had served with. It was a different branch, the one that he had served with, to talk to the captain and the soldiers to gather information and discreetly offer our assistance. While he didn't know the people there specifically, he still carried the insignia and he understood the customs and etiquette that you had to have within this specific mercenary legion, and so they treated him like an insider and a veteran with the respect and trust that he deserved, which is a lot more than would have happened if there'd just been a group of random people there also. Our big axe dwarf and our samurai went to the arena to talk to people there, to the fighters specifically, because one of the fighters had been one of the people who had tried to murder the mayor, and so they wanted to find out about his motives. And the arena fighters were willing to talk to them because they joined in the sparring and they were able to teach them techniques learn techniques from them. It was a very amicable thing of, hey, we are all like killing people and fighting professionals. We understand each other. Our noblewoman, who also is a slave owner, but that's a whole different kind of story. She moved through the, more aristocratic spheres of the city, specifically talking to the leader of the local biggest, most important temple, assessing her as a potential prospect of becoming the mayor should the mayor succumb. After all, she was able to gather a lot of information that regular peasants just wouldn't have been given access to, and she was able to assess accurately the complex political situation of the town because she'd been surrounded by intrigue all her life. None of these things would have been as possible or atmospheric if the whole party had been there, and also we found out things about all of these different characters because there were scenes that focused specifically on them, and they were able to shine in their individual way. It was fantastic, and we were only able to do it because we split the party. I'm sorry, but if the rogue brings the paladin and the golden plate to the local thieves hangout, he's just not going to be treated the same way. And conversely, if the holy warrior paladin brings some fellow with the coat and it's this face, you can't barely see it, he's in the corner playing with his dagger to the temple of the holy light, the people there will treat him with suspicion by association. Now, I realize that you can't really do this with every kind of party and every kind of player. Some people get really bored when things aren't just about them at this very moment. They're the kind of people who sit in combat just to wait until it's their turn and they can do the cool thing that they've been thinking of. They're not gonna sit through a whole scene that they're not even in. They're gonna play with their phone, call their mum. And I realize that there is this idea out there that you should, as a good GM, accept every kind of player and be able to work with them. But no, I'm sorry. If that is the kind of person you are at my table, either grow up and become an adult or leave. You're gonna get a scene that's all about you, but you also have to let other people have their fill. There's also players who are quite uncomfortable being the center of attention, which, that's fine. I tend to, nudge them on a little bit because I have found that very often when they are in a scene where they understand the ropes and where they can feel comfortable because they are competent, they find out that they like having that kind of scene every once in a while, but I won't force them to do it. Luckily, they are often the kind of character that's the brawns, so you can just have them be the bodyguard of a different character who maybe needs someone to be tough and standing in the corner. And if there's proper communication between the players and the GM, you can take this concept as far as everyone is happy with. And generally speaking, they will be happy with it because the game will start to feel more like the kind of TV show or film or book that they envision it being. Obviously, you don't need to give every character a solo scene in every session. Most of the sessions you're gonna get away with just having the party be there all at the same time. But I would argue that even sometimes there's characters who can even only appear rarely. Now, I realize that this is kind of weird sounding because it's something that I like to do with some of my characters. Most players are not going to enjoy this way of playing. Like, one of my characters, for instance, is a lawyer. He's a law-abiding person who believes in justice, individual rights, protecting the little man, but he's also very cunning, and he understands the political system in a very pragmatic manner and is able to navigate the halls of the aristocracy. Now, the rest of the party that he's currently with is ruffians and thieves. He's helping them because they're trying to come up with a codified system of solving disputes without it breaking out into gang wars where people and also innocents die all of the time, and they are opposed by this by the city's corrupt nobility. Naturally, this requires a lot of doing shady things, and my character doesn't just look the other way when he's around, he takes care not to be around when those things happen. Now, I've not played a lot of sessions with this group yet, but I do get the feeling that my character is going to be not there more than he is there, and that is fine. I have communicated this with the GM, he knows this, it's fine. I'm just going to watch the story unfold most of the time, and then occasionally come in and do something that is important that those characters can't handle, give advice, so on and so forth. More like a recurring character than one of the main cast. It does help that he is completely useless in combat. More of a liability, really, than anything. So all I have to do is trust that the GM won't just assault me with a threat that the party would have been able to deal with, but my character, you know, can't. And so now he's dead. I do have a feeling he's gonna try to capture me, imprison me for some reason, but that's fine, because I do really trust this GM. He knows what he's doing. This, of course, is a playstyle that is not for everyone. It's probably for very few people. But my point is that I think we lose a lot of dramatic potential by trying to adhere to a formula that demonstrably doesn't work in order to create proper drama within a scene. The whole thing where the party's gathered and you can't really have a proper conversation with any given NPC because nobody knows like who's supposed to speak now, who's taking charge. We're all talking to this guy and it feels like an interrogation. That just doesn't happen in the context where you only ever have the amount of characters that you need. Keep in mind that I am by no means saying, you know, keep the party split at all times so it's always perfect drama. That's kind of antithetical to the point of the game. I'm saying don't force all of the characters to be in every single scene. It just makes things so boring. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar, maybe buying some of my merchandise or my short story collection, where I do generally, hopefully, maybe follow some of the rules of drama. I like having a fuck ton of characters. I really like doing it, so obviously it's gonna happen eventually. And in that spirit, have fun playing the system of your choice, even if it is Dungeons and Dragons. And see you around, cunts.